Construction is now well advanced on the Pacific Highway upgrade from the Karua bypass towards Bulahdelah. Ironically, one small section of the completed road is already carrying traffic and it's being used as the Tea Gardens Hawks Nest turnoff. With the state government still opposed to building a flyover nearby, Roads Minister Eric Roosendahl is under renewed pressure to urgently inspect the intersection.
What I say to the ministers is get out of Macquarie Street, get up and listen to the local community and have a consideration for their safety.
An independent review undertaken last year claimed what is being built will be sufficient for the next decade. However, the federal member contends the failure to act now means the state government has accepted responsibility for whatever happens at the completed intersection.
They have to take full responsibility should there be any accidents because they've ignored the concerns, ignored the advice from the community, the people that actually use that intersection on a daily basis.
Meantime, construction is set to continue between the Tea Gardens turnoff and Bulahdelah after Abbey Group contractors won the joint federal-state contract for the next 23 kilometres of dual carriageway. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The southern end of the Mater Hospital is undergoing a total transformation, the skyline changing at a dramatic pace. Work began in January and already the top floor of the southern block has been built, with the $150 million redevelopment 20 days ahead of schedule.
This building is coming up out of the ground at a ridiculously fast rate. It's actually quite frightening.
The construction of two specially designed oncology concrete bunkers is complete and they'll be in use by mid-next year. They'll house linear accelerators, huge machines like these which deliver life-saving treatment to cancer patients.
The bunker walls average between about 1.5 metres and 2.5 metres thick. There's around about 330 cubic metres of concrete just in the roof alone.
The Mater currently operates 3 linear accelerators but desperately needs an extra 2, which will treat 1,000 extra cancer patients each year. And the oncology unit will benefit from a generous and rather unique cash donation which has turned trash to treasure. A water tower at the Mater, which included 40 tonnes of steel, was recycled into scrap metal, raising $10,000. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
This is a mission like no other for the Volunteer Coast Guard at Port Stephens, taking the Australian Bureau of Statistics on board.
They are making available their boat to us, to census collectors, so that we can get census forms out to properties that are only accessible by water.
We'll have to go around each of the public moorings to catch the overnighters, and of course they've asked us to go up to Broughton Island.
As of tomorrow, they'll start dropping off census forms, visiting at least 12 public moorings from Karua to the Heads.
As you can see, we will make sure that we get a census form out to everyone.
Crew member Colleen Bennett is one of 2 special district collectors appointed by the ABS to help service Port Stephens and the Great Lakes.
We can give them some assistance, plus we could get some exposure to the Coast Guard helping out, giving something back to the community, which the community, of course, we rely on to support us.
Census night is on Tuesday, the 8th of August. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
It's like your own personal commentary or someone talking to you in a very friendly way, showing you what you need to know to be able to do your job well.
It may have been a while since a large group of these French classics has been seen on Australian roads, but this contingent has been specially shipped in from France for an adventure called Dream Quest. The 1934 to 1937 model Citroën Traction Avance are trusty steeds for a contingent of 40 mostly French car enthusiasts eager to see Australia and meet Australians.
One of the things around DreamQuest is to get to meet real people, so we're arranging for them to meet Aboriginal communities and people from local communities in small locations like Rabbit Flat.
They set out from Sydney for the Lower Hunter Vineyards and today headed via Nundle to Tamworth. After touring through northwest New South Wales, their 7,000-kilometre four-week odyssey will conclude in Darwin. Organiser Didier Hess has no doubts these enduring examples of French automobile manufacturing have the heart under the bonnet to do the job, and running repairs pose no problems.
On an Outback workshop, we can do anything, repair, and it's slow engine that goes nicely.
And these budding Outback adventurers have done their homework when it comes to petrol prices. Didier and team ready to pay whatever it costs in the Outback.
The most expensive place we found was Rabbit Flat on the road to Halls Creek. It's really expensive.
The expense aside, the motto of the DreamQuest participants is simple. The world is wide, life is short. Better to live your dreams than to dream your life. Gary Blair, NBN News.
They're two of the top players in the NRL, but Brett Comolli and Adam Dykes have bore the brunt of criticism during the Sharks' four-game losing streak. Critics say Cronulla can win with both players individually, not side by side, but the Knights remain cautious.
They're both quality players. They've both been playing first grade for a number of years, so can't underestimate their halves.
While the battle of the number sevens will be one to watch, coach Michael Hagan will again put his faith in teenager Jared Mullen at 5'8".
Improving all the time. I still think there's a few things that we can work on with him, but he's only 19 and getting better all the time, so I think the more time he spends here, the better he'll get.
A star in the making, Mullen is beginning to ease into his role alongside captain Andrew Johns.
He's under a lot of pressure, like sides obviously go out to target him, so I'm just trying to go out there and take a bit of pressure off him, yeah.
On the injury front, Johns was cleared to play after suffering concussion in the win over Souths. Anthony Quinn, Clint Newton, Matt Gidley and Milton Thaiday were also declared fit following this morning's final session. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. A light training run for 5 of our local Wallaroos in preparation for next month's World Cup. While women's rugby may not command the attention of the men's game, the girls say the honour is the same.
I've only been playing rugby for about 3 years, so I didn't ever think that I'd get to this level. It was pretty tense leading up to it. Got selected in a squad of 111 last year, and pretty much it's been 12 months worth of hard work.
Hailing from clubs Carlton, Wanderers and University, the players say the local competition is a major factor in their success.
Hunter's very strong. We've got the second biggest local competition in Australia, so I think it stems from that. Also, our rep team's been very successful. We've won the last 7 country championships.
Of the 6, open side flanker Rebecca Trethown faces the toughest battle for a place in the starting 15.
The last World Cup captain actually is open side flanker, as well as I think this year's most rated player. She's also open side flanker.
Currently ranked number 6, the Wallaroos won't start as favourite, but are aiming to make the final. Drawn with South Africa, France and America, the Aussies' first goal is to top their pool.
He's called the Doberman, but Daniel Aman insists he's no underdog. At 23, the Stockton Southpaw will fight for the national cruiserweight belt in Hamilton tomorrow night. Not bad after just 18 months on the professional circuit.
You know, like win, lose or draw, then I'll get a lot of experience out of it and probably be a better fighter for it.
Daniel's ahead of his time as far as his life in boxing has gone. He's only been really boxing for 18 months, but he's just excelled.
The man he'll fight's known as the Maxville Mauler. Justin Clements is 10 years older, has 47 pro fights to his name with 34 wins. A mismatch, perhaps, but try telling Daniel that. He's fought just 8 times, lost once, and knows he'll have to cop plenty of knocks to be a real title contender.
Doesn't matter how tough you are, you're going to get hurt, but the more of that you can take, then you're always in the fight if you can stand there and stand up to it.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
This charred rubble is all that's left of a former dormitory at Avon College. It was discovered ablaze around 1 this morning.
One of our staff members who lives very close to the vicinity of the fire, and he was awakened by his dog in the early hours of the morning and called the fire brigade.
2 fire crews and rural fire service volunteers worked to protect nearby buildings which were not damaged. There were concerns a squatter was inside the building. Police today put that fear to rest.
At this stage we haven't located anything to suggest anyone has been injured or killed in the fire.
Forensic police and Energy Australia workers sifted through the rubble in an effort to find the cause of the fire. It's believed a cigarette left by the squatter may have sparked the blaze. Belinda Galbraith, NBN News.
Well, I find it interesting how the Melbourne Storm are clear favourites for the minor premiership on 34 points, 6 clear of their nearest rival, but they're anything but favourites in punters' eyes when it comes to taking out the competition. Most punters feel a little uneasy when they look through the Storm's roster and there's no real superstars. Now, sure, they have some super outside backs, but when you compare them to the Broncos, Bulldogs and Dragons, they do fall short. And as the old saying goes, not being a team of champions, they are a champion team. You can pull 2 or 3 key players out of this squad and they won't miss a beat. Attention to detail and total structure will allow someone to slot straight in and do the job. And there's no better example of structure and detail than the Storm's defence and their defence around the play of the balls. Now, the Storm is in strange territory at the moment after winning 8 straight. The fact is, there's no use having a winning streak this far out from the semis, only to feel the pressure of your first loss and feeling of peaking too early. But as I understand it, Melbourne will start resting their key players periodically in a quest to keep them fresh and injury-free for the semi-finals. It also may induce a loss which will release the pressure. Now, I've tipped them to lose this weekend. However, as far as the year goes, I'm tipping the Storm to be there at the pointy end of the season. On to round 21, a massive game tonight for the Knights at Toyota Park. Go the Knights for that one. Saturday, 3 games, Panthers, Eels and Raiders. Sunday, 3 games as well, Dragons, Cowboys and Broncos. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week.
The Hunter Valley Gardens 35 horticulturalists have been frantic over the past few weeks, planting over 250,000 annuals and 30,000 daffodils in the lead up to the Festival of Flowers.
The last 6 months we've been working flat out every day. Planning's taken 9 months and over the last 3 months we've been flat out planting.
Over 20,000 people visited the gardens during the inaugural festival last year, and with twice the number of flowers and an extension of the festival by 2 weeks, Hunter Valley Gardens management is expecting to see around 40,000 people pass through the gates across the festival's 5 weeks.
Almost doubled the number of visitors for the same period, so we'd expect to see that probably plus some.
There will also be a range of art and craft activities to keep those without a green thumb amused.
One of the big features for this year is Dancing Waters, which we're opening today, and which is a water, light and sound show down by the lakes by the chapel. So that's running, it's free with entry into the garden, so that runs every day on the hour.
The festival runs until the 3rd of September. Belinda Galbraith, NBN News.
It's the new baby sister of the Forum Sports and Aquatic Centre at the university, only this gym is harbourside. With the development boom continuing, particularly around honeysuckle, the Forum Health and Wellness Centre will cater for the growing number of people living and working in the inner city.
The new sport board recognised the fact that we could leverage a second venue off the success of the Sports and Aquatic Centre, and also with the growth in the inner city and the university's commitment to the inner city, it was just strategically good sense.
The refit of the 19th century building has been sympathetic, with architects designing the interior with minimal impact, including a freestanding concrete slab which isn't attached to the original brickwork.
The main concept was to create a building within a building. That way we could keep everything independent of the existing structure.
Car parking has always been a concern at Honeysuckle, but Samantha Martin is confident it won't be a major obstacle.
A number of the patrons will utilise facilities pre-8 a.m. and post-5 p.m, and a number of those patrons will have already parked their car perhaps for the day and walk from their business.
It's due to open in late October. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Hailing from Colombia, playing in Korea and now trialling with the Jets, Milton Fabian's motivation to play in the A-League is more straightforward.
As a striker, it's obviously to score goals and to help the team as much as he can and leave a good football impression here.
No such worries for 19-year-olds Mark Bridge and Stu Mashalik, both named in the Socceroos Asian Cup squad last night. As players waited to board the bus to Port Macquarie this morning, teammates read about the call-up, made more special for Bridge and Mashalik, given it will be their first senior national camp.
I suppose it's a little bit of extra pressure, but I don't know, it's just a bit more motivation to get out there and prove that I'm up to it.
Yeah, the 20s is unbelievable. You get goosebumps playing for the 20s, so I can imagine training with the Socceroos is going to be just unbelievable.
Defender Jade North completes Newcastle's national contingent. He's been a Socceroo before and admits it's getting harder to keep a spot.
Nick, Theo here and Frank, our fitness coach, have done an exceptional job getting us, getting me in physical great shape, and I can take it away from the Jets to go with the Socceroos.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
They're busy sanding cedar boats from the 1880s, chipping corrosion from old harbour signal lamps and cataloguing 10,000 charts and blueprints for ships. The Throsby Wharf cargo shed is the home base for part of the Maritime Museum's collection before the new centre opens next year. And volunteers with a nautical bent have come out of the woodwork for the massive restoration project.
For almost anything you'd like to do at the moment, we're effectively doing what a full-scale museum does, except that we're doing it with volunteers working. It's a community museum, and what's going to come out in the end will be what the community puts in.
Behind every door lies a treasure that tells part of our history. Once the glass panels on these port and starboard lights are repaired, they'll become interior lighting for the new museum. There's even a yardarm from William Bligh's Bounty and old rescue boats whose crew rowed shipwrecked sailors to shore. This restored cargo shed will be the new home for the museum, which is expected to open in about a year's time. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's no wonder Neil Slater is all smiles. He's behind the plan to redevelop the historic Nobby's Headland, which Newcastle Council officers have recommended be approved at next week's meeting.
Oh, feeling very, very excited. Still a bit apprehensive about what Tuesday night will bring, but living in hope that we've crossed all our T's and dotted all our I's, and hopefully we can move forward and get the thing up and running now.
A consortium will turn 3 existing cottages into 8 accommodation suites, with another building transformed into a 50-seat restaurant with breathtaking views. The lighthouse was established on Nobby's Headland in 1858, so the plan includes a number of measures to satisfy the requirements of the Heritage Council.
It's now up to the councillors to make a decision as to whether or not we can allow the people of Newcastle access to their icon, to their symbol of the city.
Meanwhile, the company behind the proposed restaurant and lounge bar at the historic Newcastle Post Office has lodged an appeal in the Land and Environment Court against council imposing a midnight curfew, and fencing has today been erected around the building to protect it from vandals. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
We first met freestyle jumper Tyrone Gilks as a 10-year-old in December 2004. Not only did he go on, but flew on. He's now in America, where the magic figure is 150 feet or a shade over 45 metres. It's a world record attempt on an 85cc bike, part of Evel Knievel Week in Montana. In local league, Maitland's home game with Wests has been moved to Harker Oval on Sunday, with just the one game tomorrow. It's 2 versus 3 in Newcastle and Hunter Rugby when University hosts Merewether Carlton, and in NBN Soccer, 1 game tomorrow with 4 matches to complete the round on Sunday. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
Most of Singleton lined the main street today to see the rare sight of an army marching into town with swords drawn, seeking the right of entry to the city. The Freedom of Entry Parade is a medieval tradition seldom replicated today.
It does date way back. It used to be when armed soldiers used to come to a city gate. They would be stopped and asked to sheath their swords and show their peaceful intent. And once they'd done that, they'd be allowed to pass through into the city.
Today's parade just one part of the celebrations, marking a number of anniversaries for the town. It's also the first time the new Australian Army banner has visited Singleton.
It's 140 years of local government, going right back to the early times of the municipality of Singleton. And then it's also a 100th anniversary this year of the Patrick's Plains Shire.
Also on display, historical documents showing the life of Singleton Council, from its humble beginnings when the first meeting was held in the Caledonia Hotel in 1866. Belinda Galbraith, NBN News.
The Jaegers are on the road this week to meet Sydney in Wollongong, spreading the netball gospel on the south coast.
We're obviously looking for the last 3 games to win them, but also ruffle a few feathers at the same time.
Should the Jaegers beat the Swifts, it'll certainly be one big wing clipping. The Sydney Glamour Club has won all of its games so far, and another tomorrow would equal its own record of 12 in one season. With most of the focus on the league leaders, the Hunter captain knows Sydney will be feeling the pressure, especially given when both teams last met, the Jaegers came within 9 points of an upset.
So with that in mind, we're coming into this week, thinking that, we've got every chance of winning against the Swifts.
Today is the start of a 34-week campaign for Craig Bowman, having won the right to represent the Liberal Party over two of his fellow Port Stephens councillors. Securing funds for a new Raymond Terrace police station among the issues on Mayor Bowman's state agenda.
There are education problems. We're busing 900 students a day from the Tilbury and Madowie areas into Raymond Terrace to attend high school.
Changing the proposed protection areas for the Port Stephens Marine Park and overhauling the RTA's plans for the Tea Gardens turnoff are issues high on Craig Bowman's action list for the newly redrawn electorate.
There are fatals there regularly. There are serious accidents just as regularly. It needs a flyover.
Belinda Galbraith, NBN News. Armed with picks and shovels, these people chose getting dirty over a sleep-in this morning, finding worms an added bonus for the little ones.
For Newcastle and for the environment, come to plant some trees and get the children involved.
Around 50 people making the most of the sunshine to restore King Edward Park to its former glory.
A natural habitat back here, a wetland area with a few little trees dotted through here, just to sort of bring back some natural vegetation into the area.
Over 6 years, 5,000 trees have been planted in Bray Park in Waratah, creating a green corridor for fauna movements, and this is the result.
There's also been new populations of birds coming into the area, which is increasing the value of our bushland.
With both teams desperate to stay in touch with the top five, it was a pressure game. The Magpies first to crack, and Souths made them pay. The Terrace replied on the wing, attacking the same corner to score 2 tries before Souths winger Michael Smith levelled at 12-all going into the break. Souths had a slight advantage when 1 up on the visitors before they too were reduced to 12. Magpies centre Gavin Quinn broke the deadlock. Before too long, the game was put out of reach as Raymond Terrace races to the finals. The Jets remain a goalie short, but Ben Kennedy was playing second fiddle to no one last night, holding out a determined Queensland. Newcastle had its chances too, only to be stopped by a former teammate, Liam Reddy, doing the Jets no favours in goal. Nick Carl showed plenty of promise up front, but the stalemate just couldn't be broken. One has to ask, would a supporting act have made the difference? These contenders for the Jets Bombers squad would like to think so, with tryouts today. Gone the days of pom-poms, here it's anything goes.
The 16-year-old youth, who can't be named for legal reasons, is standing trial before Justice Roderick Howie and a jury over the alleged murder of Zane McCready in Hanbury Street, Mayfield in July last year. The Crown case alleges the teenager killed the 20-year-old member of the RAAF when McCready and a friend who was visiting Newcastle became involved in an altercation with a group of youths during a night out. McCready was stabbed in the neck with a broken bottle and later died of his injuries. As the month-long trial moved into its closing stages today, Defence Counsel for the accused, Greg Grogan, attacked police handling of forensic evidence in the case. He questioned why 31 items were given a high priority for DNA tests, but only 15 were actually examined. Mr Grogan added nobody claimed ownership of the crime scene and reviewed what items should be fingerprinted. He told jurors, "My respectful submission is that the Crown case is far from conclusive, far from complete." Justice Howie will complete his instruction of the 6-woman, 6-man jury tomorrow morning when they're expected to retire to consider their verdict. Gary Blair, NBN News.
It's drinking water down the drain unless we can reuse it, and Hunter Water's latest plan involves treating effluent and pumping it into the Tomago sand beds for extra filtering.
The proposal on the table is that we would treat effluent at Raymond Terrace to drinking water standard, and we would put it through 5 years of natural filtration before we would consider pulling it back out and retreating it for drinking water.
The Health Department would have to approve the trial before it goes ahead. But another plan already given the green light will see this land near Maitland turned into the region's first recycled water subdivision.
It's at Thornton North, and also we're considering it for Gilson Heights and Currumbole. These communities will have a separate pipe in the street, and they will use the effluent for garden watering and toilet flushing.
The Hunter already recycles about 10% of its effluent for irrigation and heavy industry, compared to just 2% in Sydney. But our water boss says it's all been recycled before.
The facts are that all water on the planet's recycled, and the water that we have today went through 1 million dinosaurs before it ever got to us.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
If the proposed sanctuary zone at Cromarty Bay goes ahead, it could jeopardise local oyster growers' ability to continue to run their businesses and almost certainly rule out any chance of future expansion. The area's oyster farmers have been campaigning to have the bay zoning changed to either a special purpose or habitat protection zone, which, while still protecting the environment, would allow them to continue to grow oysters. Tonight, Port Stephens councillors will consider whether or not to submit a report to the state government recommending just that.
I really didn't know it was coming up tomorrow night, but yes, I will be doing some lobbying there for that, because it's imperative we have a special purpose zone here around this.
The report also recommends that a sanctuary zone proposed for a popular recreational fishing spot at Little Beach at Nelson Bay be changed. However, the Mayor wasn't making any promises about adopting the report today.
The marine park is not popular within the community, and we do have a very representative group of councillors, so I can't guarantee the report's going to remain as it looks at the moment.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
After a weekend off, it was back to work today for the Knights following that pressure cooker against the Sharks.
We're both sort of just clinging on to the top 8 at the moment, so we're very happy to get away with the win, and it was a grinding semi-final type game, I suppose.
A game Adam Woolnough won't forget in a hurry, charging over for his 3rd try this season, and a crucial one at that.
Front rows don't score many, so in a key situation like that to get in front and get the lead for the boys, it's even better.
With a focus on fitness this morning, it certainly got the Knights through on Friday night. A host of injuries meant the bench was tested, and didn't they feel it?
The pace out there was really taxing. Josh Perry and myself, we did a fair bit of work there, and Smitty and Luke DeVico come on, and just around the middle of the ruck, it was really intense.
Kirk Reynoldson required attention for a knee problem but made a return, as did Steve Simpson, who toiled with a troublesome groin. Todd Lowry also played on with a hamstring injury but is in doubt for Sunday's game with the Roosters. A question mark too on 5'8" Jared Mullen, with the young playmaker recovering from bruising to his sternum. Not everything went to plan at the Italian leg of Speedway's World Championship, a series of crashes and a subsequent dispute making for a controversial round. For Aussie Jason Crump, this was going to be a walk in the park. The former world number one never looked troubled as he scooted to the lead after just one lap. Crump held on to win his fourth event from 6 races, his name practically all over the world title, should he continue to finish like this. To a different kind of motorsport and a new world record for Macquarie Hills dynamo Tyrone Gilkes. Seen here at home, the 12-year-old has literally raised the yardstick. On board an 85cc motorcycle, he cleared a staggering 51 metres in a ramp-to-ramp jump in the United States at the weekend. We're told he's already planning his next world record attempt. And National Netball League heavyweight Sydney has held off a determined Hunter Jagers to win by 4 goals. Hunter captain Jane Olschwager pulled off some precious shots but was unable to match Sydney counterpart Catherine Cox, who helped the Swifts win 42-38.
Over the past 4 weeks, the Newcastle Supreme Court has heard from approximately 38 witnesses on the homicide in Hanbury Street, Mayfield. 20-year-old Zane McCready was stabbed in the neck with a broken bottle and later died from his injuries. During his final summation today, Justice Howie gave directions to the jury regarding the eyewitness accounts before they retired. He said, "Be cautious. Look at the way witnesses deal with cross-examination, their demeanour and their behaviour in the witness box, their voice, their body language. This will help you to make your assessment." He added there are some inconsistencies of the accounts. Take into account honesty, accuracy and reliability of the witnesses. Justice Howie also reviewed some of the forensic evidence, noting that the deceased's DNA was on the accused's shorts. Justice Howie also said that one of the more powerful pieces of evidence was that the deceased's DNA had been found on the accused's right hand. The DNA discovered the next day after the hand had been washed and a wound tended to. The jury will continue its deliberations on Thursday. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
As far as holding business conventions goes, it seems the Hunter has dropped the ball. Over the past 2 years, the region's business tourism has taken a downturn, with conference bookings and accommodation occupancy rates down between 5 and 10%.
The industry, I think, became a little complacent, and that happens when you're sort of on top, and we were a few years ago.
The Hunter Regional Tourism Organisation is now taking steps to stop the tourism decline and sell the region's assets. A tourism conference is being held next week to try and unite the Hunter's biggest tourism businesses and bring visitors back to the region.
And we have some definite plans to go into the Sydney market and have a strong sales presence in the Sydney market to attract the business into the Hunter region.
However, the loss of business tourism is being felt statewide, with many organisations like Clubs New South Wales moving their annual conferences interstate to supposedly sexier locations.
There's so much here for us to offer, and it's a matter of digging deep into that and then selling the sizzle.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Well-known businessman Jeff McCloy handed over $1 million cheque to the Salvation Army today after pledging the money during the recent Red Shield appeal.
It's putting something back into the community, and they are doers, so we're happy to do so.
The Army wants to sell off its undersized headquarters in Union Street at Newcastle West and move out of rented space on King Street to establish a new centre for its operations.
We're looking for a new venue for the Salvation Army to operate from. We're already doing that, not because of this donation, but over the last 12 months we've been doing that. But this donation has certainly come at the right time.
The Olive Branch Cafe is just one program that will benefit from the donation. For the past 12 years, the Army has trained young people in hospitality skills, most of whom go on to find work.
We're wanting to establish that perhaps into a new particular setting, allow the training to take place, and allowing those young people not only to offer their meals and sell their meals at a profit, but also to get them into the training habit of helping the needy people.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Coach Michael Hagan admits the Knights aren't playing to their potential, but with the team's best making a return to form, the future looks bright.
Danny Badura's probably had his best game for some time, and Andrew Johns was outstanding in his role. So I think, while we've got players like that playing well, has a lot of positive effect on the rest of the team.
On the injury front, Todd Lowry, Kirk Reynoldson and Jared Mullen will be given every opportunity to play this weekend. Hagan believes the clash with an unpredictable Roosters outfit on the Central Coast could play into Newcastle's hands.
Logistically, it's a bit closer. I think we'll have a good following down there. It's a good surface and a good stadium, a good atmosphere to play at. So I don't see any real downside to it.
And some good news for Knights fans, with 5/8 Kurt Gidley making a return to training at this afternoon's session. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. With Griffiths finally putting pen to paper, the club's long search for a striker is over, but it's still complicated at the other end. The club is negotiating with Serie B club Verona for the release of former Northern Spirit keeper Jesse Van Stratton, but management says it's only a 50-50 prospect. The club has Argentine trialist Nestor Ruiz on standby, while Kiwi international Stephen Old has signed on to replace the injured Craig Deans. Off the park, Jets management is yet to begin talks with the Wests Group and Newcastle Knights about the lease arrangements for Energy Australia Stadium. The ISC Trust will eventually need to approve the deal, but at this stage it's hoping for a speedy resolution in order to move ahead with proposed upgrades.
We'd love to see the old Western Grandstand redeveloped and so on, so the more successful the Knights, the Jets and everybody else that uses it, the more likely that is to take place.
And in the Bill Turner Cup, Hunter Sports High is through to the final 16 following a 4-goal thrashing of Brisbane Water Umina. Hunter attacked from the opening whistle, peppering the Umina keeper with several shots on target. The best goal came late in the first half as Alex Palazzi produced a strike beyond his years to open the floodgates. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
We all know that the Australian Rugby Union team has great facilities up there. Again, that was an initiative out of this group and the council. So we're trying to do similar things here in the Hunter region.
With the mortar trowelled for potentially a fresh round of mortgage rate rises, the housing industry is most disappointed. The HIA believes the increase is premature because it comes as hunter builders awaited a lift in business.
Some builders have been quite busy for the first half. Some builders, on the other hand, have had it pretty flat. Just recently, though, in the last couple of months, in May and June, approvals have indicated that there's a turnaround coming.
Real estate was another part of the regional economy that braced itself for the decision.
We're happy that it's not the rumoured 0.5% that was out there in the marketplace, but still there's going to be a small hiccup in the market.
Hunter Valley Research Foundation has been monitoring both the low level of intention to buy an existing or new home and reduced residential building approvals. The foundation expects there will be a further delay in recovery for the housing sector and the region's economy.
We are in the middle of a bit of a down at the moment, but a recovery is inevitable. The question is when, of course.
Decisions about passing the latest increase on to local customers are yet to be made. The Greater is expected to review its rate within days, while the Newcastle Permanent will consider the issue next week. Gary Blair, NBN News.
By early 2008, the people of Newcastle and visitors alike will finally have access to Nobby's Lighthouse.
They're putting in a restaurant and a cafe and a viewing platform. I mean, everybody has the opportunity to get up there. You don't even need to put your hand in your pocket if you simply want to go and have a look at the best Newcastle can offer.
Last night, Council approved an application to carry out alterations and additions to the site, most today agreeing it was the best decision.
I have lived here 64 years and I've never been up the top. So yes, it would be excellent.
It's a good spot up there. I wouldn't mind having a sip of wine looking down on the waves.
But despite Heritage Council approval as well, some still have concerns.
I think it's a terrible shame because it's a historical site.
And while restoration work on the Newcastle Ocean Baths begins in 2 weeks, a couple of other coastal projects are still lying dormant. After 4 years in the planning, the Dixon Park kiosk is still being stalled, the club waiting for Council's beach framework study to be completed. As for the Merriweather Surf House saga...
Well, Surf House is just in the too hard basket for everyone.
The Hunter coastline is no stranger to large sharks, but the locals at Catherine Hill Bay are a little more concerned than normal after sightings almost every day in recent weeks.
A bit lately with these huge schools of Australian salmon, which you can see out there now, there's been large numbers of large sharks, whaler sharks and great whites coming in and harassing the surface here.
They've been scanning the bay from headlands and patrolling on jet skis, and this lone surfer did look a little nervous today, well aware of the plentiful fish stocks and the presence of sharks. Just yesterday, these tradesmen working on a seaside house spotted 6 large sharks travelling close to shore.
I think I'll still go out, but I'll be very wary of them, that's all. And make sure I'm with somebody else as well, yeah. Increase the odds of less chance of me getting bitten, yeah.
Glenn Valere circulated an email to members of the Board Riders Club, warning them of the danger.
Been in the water when there's been shark sightings, and even on the weekend a few friends had sharks harass them and they had to huddle together and then paddle to shore quickly.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Brooke Bannister and her sister Jane are furious after being forced to take off their underwear during a recent A-grade Newcastle Netball Association match. The pair were ordered off the court after an official noticed they were wearing unacceptable boy-leg briefs, much like these, under their uniforms.
I just think that in this day and age, women should have the choice to wear shorts underneath their skirts if they want to.
Ms Bannister says she's played in the extra undies for the past 3 years without complaint.
It's just to have a bit more peace of mind, a bit more comfort when you're playing, and just to sort of have a bit of modesty as well.
Uniform manufacturer Wendy Edmonds says she was upset to hear that her garments' built-in duds have been touted as inadequate for play.
I was a little annoyed, I suppose, because we take great pride in our uniforms being comfortable. We've spent a lot of time on the cut of our knickers.
Netball Association President Del Saunders doesn't think much of the brief situation.
Very childish, actually. I think it's a storm in a teacup.
The sisters are now lodging an official complaint. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It's one of the region's most heated local derbies, but the clash between the Magic and Olympic was slow out of the blocks. Chris Archer combined with Chris Berlin to produce a first attempt on goal for Broadmeadow, but Hamilton answered quickly. Magic keeper Scott Carter equalled to this effort. As the game began to bog down in midfield, John Bennis produced a perfect through ball for Berlin, who forced Olympic keeper Andrew Goldman into a diving save. From the corner, Magic captain David Bailey produced a textbook volley, with Goldman only able to deflect the ball into his own net. Minutes later, Alex Provost looked to restore a draw, but the Magic's keeper ensured a clean sheet. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
What started out as a relaxed holiday to Vanuatu soon turned into a mission of mercy. Newcastle ambulance officer Jodie Adams says she fell in love with the babies she met at Villa Hospital and decided to do something to make their life a little easier.
Upon visiting the local hospital, I just saw the need for really basic things, and it's not a big thing, but newborn baby clothing is something that would really help them over there.
Ms Adams has spent the past month rallying her co-workers for donations and scouring Newcastle's St Vincent de Paul shops for baby clothes and toys. She's already gathered enough clothing for 20 babies.
So I think as ambulance officers we see a lot of tragedy and a lot of grief in our day-to-day work. So officers are really glad to be able to do something like this to balance out all the negative things that we see.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The aftermath of a mate's night out that ended tragically. 20-year-old Zane McCready and a friend visiting from Victoria were walking along this street in the Newcastle suburb of Mayfield when they became involved in a fight with a group of teenagers. During the melee, the Air Force technician was stabbed in the neck with a broken bottle and later died in hospital. After a month-long trial before Justice Roderick Howie in the Newcastle Supreme Court, a 6-woman, 6-man jury today found a 16-year-old youth who can't be named because of his age guilty of Mr McCready's murder. As the victim's family and friends left the court, they released a statement saying no words could describe the complete horror surrounding Zane's death. They said they will never understand how Zane could be taken away in such a senseless and avoidable tragedy. The extent of the aggression, violence and injury occasioned upon him can only be described as obscene. The family and friends of Zane McCready also extended their thoughts to the family of the teenager, saying in the statement that their lives, like ours, had been changed forever by the senseless tragedy. Justice Howie will sentence the youth in the Newcastle Supreme Court on October 16. Gary Blair, NBN News.
With major Air Force and Army bases located in the region, hunter businesses are in a strong position to snare more lucrative defence contracts and boost employment.
Defence is a major business sector for the region. We've got about 3,000 people that work on the RAF base at Williamtown, another 600 at Singleton.
And that doesn't even include local defence contractors. Today, those interested in doing business with Defence were told of some upcoming projects and contracts. The Regional Defence Briefing's now an annual event.
Well, we have the Air Warfare Destroyer and the new amphibious ships. They will be built in modules right around Australia.
As for the Williamtown RAF base,
we're getting ready to introduce new aircraft, the aerial refuelers and the airborne early warning and control aircraft. New helicopters are being used.
Meanwhile, the $3 billion upgrade of Australia's FA-18 fighters has hit a snag, with targeting and missile evading systems performing poorly during exercises in the US. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Two weeks ago, this humble-looking water pump was used to save a boat from sinking in Lake Macquarie. Last night, it proved its worth again. The New South Wales Maritime Water Authority's Hunter fleet was fitted out with the pumps last month. They can either suck water out of a vessel to stop it from sinking or be used to help put out fires. At 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, this 8-metre cabin cruiser caught alight while it was moored off Rathmines. And while there was no chance of saving it, they were able to douse the flames and tow it to shore.
There was a situation where the boat was well ablaze and in threat of sinking, and in sinking would have caused a major pollution hazard.
The authority is using the incident as a timely reminder to boat owners to check their vessels' fuel filters and connections before they head out to sea.
Of course, a leaky fuel line means fuel may drip into the bilge for a day or two. The vapour from that gets caught under the floorboards, and when they turn the engine over, the starter motor ignites the fuel vapour and you have an explosion.
Madeline Bonds, NBN News. It's tiny babies like Molly Dean who'll benefit from a massive fundraising effort underway at John Hunter Children's Hospital. For the past 6 months, staff have been working tirelessly to raise $180,000 to buy a state-of-the-art transport unit.
The one we have at the moment here weighs 140 kilograms. It's approximately 10 years old now, and we realise that we have to replace that.
The unit contains an incubator, heart monitor, ventilator and life support equipment and is used to save around 60 lives each year.
The baby's born, say, in a hospital in the New England region and gets particularly sick, then what we will do is fly out with Westpac Rescue Helicopter with the transport crib and bring the baby back to Newcastle.
Today, Rex Pemberton, better known as the youngest Australian to climb Mount Everest, made a $2,500 donation towards the kitty and regaled many of the hospital's younger patients with tales of his adventures.
It's great just to be able to tie my climbs into something that is greater than just climbing mountains, to helping premature babies to just develop.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.